All right. Good evening. We are live. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined this evening by a very special guest, Mr. Bob. How are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Where are you calling from?
California,
Oh, what county?
San Diego.
Oh, okay. I do a lot of cases down there at Meadowlark and East County. They're in what do they call East County, where the court is?
They call it the East County Division. That's the one in El Cajon.
El Cajon, and then of course we have Vista. I just did a trial in Vista not too long ago.
As many times as I've been there, I'm surprised I haven't seen you.
Really? Oh, look, we're joined by Miss
G.
G. Hello, Miss G. We have Bob from San Diego. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Hi, Bob. How are
Nice to see
you?
you again, Miss G.
Good seeing
I'm
you too.
good to see you. So
Good seeing you too, sweetie.
I don't know when would be appropriate time to mention this, but I managed to help a good friend of mine do some really really cool stuff, and I would love to get into it tonight if possible.
Well, let's just jump right on in. What's going on?
All right, so for privacy of everybody's case, because it's pretty severe. So let's just say in one of the counties in California, he was dealing with some really bad, corrupt juvenile dependency judges. We a few months back, we ended up writing this really strong complaint to the head presiding judge of that county. That judge didn't want to do anything about what the other judge did. So then we wrote a complaint to CJP, which surprisingly they agreed with everything we said.
Well,
Went up.
wait, hold on. You just can't throw out an acronym like that. Our
Sorry.
viewers, especially in other states, don't know what C blah 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 is. Why don't you tell us what that is?
So from what I understand, reading on the website, it's in California they have the California Judicial Commission on Judicial Performance, which basically, from what I understand, what it is, it's basically keeping judges in check. I guess that's correct.
Yeah. So you filed a complaint with the commission, the Judicial Commission, and what happened?
Well, they found substantial grounds to what we were saying, so a lot of the stuff wrote in the complaint was completely true. And then it went up to Gavin Newsom's office, where they basically just sent him a letter saying um, the CPS in that county has 30 days to return his kid, and they also removed that judge from the bench.
Hey, hold on a second. We are joined by Stacy from New York. Stacy, how are you?
Hi guys, I'm great. How are you?
Stacy, we have a special guest, Bob from California, who was just
Hi.
telling us that he helped someone file a complaint to the Judicial Commission in California. And I want you to repeat the results you got from filing that complaint, Bob.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really surprising that they actually listened to us, but after they did their investigation, they found that everything we were saying was completely true, and they sent it up to the governor's office, the governor of California, and then the governor of California sent him a letter basically stating that CPS in that county has 30 days to return his child, and then they also remove the judge from the bench, and then I'm not going to really say who his lawyer is going to be until it's like public information, but let's just say it's someone you most likely know, Vince Davis, and so do you, Miss G. Um, and yeah, he's definitely going to be helping them out, and he's looking at a lot of money because of their mess up. I mean, it's like it's super rare when you get a judge caught with their pants down.
What was the substance of the complaint? Can you share?
Well, let's just say there is more red flags on this case than a construction site, and yeah, one of the big ones that stand out is that the social worker on the case was related to the baby mama's family. So that's boo boo
Yeah.
number one.
Did
And
you guys hear about the Maya case? They won like over $220 million.
Yeah.
She's 17 years old, and her mother committed suicide because they framed the mother saying that it was medical neglect and abuse when it wasn't. The child had syndrome. I'm sorry, special condition, and CPS would not allow her to see her daughter. But anyways, she sued them, and she won $220 million just recently. That was like 4 days ago.
What state was that in?
You know what? I forgot what state it was, but do you remember, Stacy, what state?
No, I was following the story a little bit. I knew what it was about, but I forgot the state too, Miss G.
Well, I just found an article about it
Mm-hmm.
on the internet, and Miss G, you understated the damages that they won. They won $261 million.
Well, I read 220 million. Take care of Maya case. It says $220 million. Maybe something else just added up. I don't know. Recently, I'm not sure. It's right here in front of me. $220 million.
It was in Florida.
Okay.
Now I'm looking at a website called FindLaw.com, which is part of the Westlaw Group, I believe. And John Hopkins Hospital to pay $261 million to the Kowalski family for
Mhm.
not taking care of Maya.
Yep.
But Bob, I digress. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I really don't know, but aren't decisions by the California Judicial Commission, aren't they public record?
Yes, but I mean, out of respect for my friend, I don't really want to say much just because, there's a lot of moving parts in this case, and I just don't want to do anything that can hinder it,
Understood. I guess we could find it ourselves by just going to the commission website and looking up the cases.
Yeah, definitely. And then I could either, private message you or Miss G if you want to look into it for yourselves. It's mind blowing.
I would love to. Now, you said that the commission removed the judge from the case or from the bench altogether.
I think he just removed him from the department. So I mean, I don't know if I could say his county or not, but I mean, since you said it's public record, I'm going to take your word on it. So if you look up the
Hold on a second. Hold on. I don't want you to mention any names. Just tell us the county.
So it's Tulare County, and then if you go onto the website, look at the current presiding judges, you'll notice that Department B is vacant.
Okay. Interesting. That must have been a hell of a thing that happened for them to remove the judge.
Oh, yeah.
But see, Davis doesn't know the whole story, Bob. Davis doesn't know the whole story.
He just told me. Well, my knowledge is limited to what Mr. Bob just told me.
Well, I mean, considering it's technically still in the juvenile courts up there, there's really not much I could exactly give out. All I could really legally say is that, there were so many red flags on this that they had no choice but to do something. I mean, there is more. I've never seen more conflict of interest on a case, and it's amazing how a lot of this happens on a daily basis, and we are just lucky that we have resources like you, like what you and your team post, and then what people like Sean McMillan post. It's been a really good resource and tool for us to navigate and how to do this, and we were just surprised that we even made it this far for him.
Bob, you are still fortunate that your commission did follow through on the complaint and investigate things. And I don't know all the details of your story, so I can't compare situations, but I will tell you that my ex-husband was an attorney for CPS, and the same agency he worked for did all of his investigations of child abuse. And the judges that he appeared before in our divorce custody action are judges he appeared before regularly, establishing a level of familiarity. So you're still actually very lucky that California did something, because they didn't do anything in my case.
You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, I don't know all the details, that if there was anything more glaring, but you know, and my kids disclosed sex abuse, strangulation. My ex is actually indicated 4 times by a neighboring county CPS for inadequate guardianship, 2 times for educational neglect and medical neglect, and he still has custody. And all these conflict of interest relationships have never been interrupted. In fact, my ex used to work for the attorney for children for over a decade, and they still would never disqualify him from the case.
Wow. Yep.
So they see these glaring conflicts all the time, and still, you know, play see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and cover them up. So you guys are actually very fortunate, and I'm so happy to hear good news for you in your friend's case.
Yeah, if the attorney that he's going with, you know, if everything that he says comes to light, he's looking at $820 million worth of damages. And that's just his lawsuit. His kid still has a whole lawsuit standing on its own.
Right. Yeah, he can sue. His kids can sue.
You know, speaking of the kids who could sue, can the kids sue? So basically, if the child is over 18 years old, this is directed to Attorney Davis. After they pass 18, they can still sue, or
Yeah. You know, a child can sue through a guardian ad litem before they're 18, and they can sue on their own after they're 18 here in California. I
okay.
assume that most states have that, you know, also have that rule. But that is the rule in California. What happened to Bob? Did we lose Bob?
Bob does that. He does that. I've had him before. Sometimes he'll just disappear and not come back. That's Bob. There goes
Yeah,
Bob.
I'm sorry. My little one is being very, very energetic.
Oh, no, it's
So-
okay, Bob.
So hold on a second, Bob, because I don't know you, and apparently Miss G and Stacy know you. Tell me about Bob. Who is Bob?
All right, so Bob reached out to Miss G and Grace. I think it was like back in 21, right, Miss
21.
G?
Mhm.
And I was just in a dark place, not knowing exactly where my case for my son was going to go, and I just felt like reaching out to people who could definitely relate and understand what I was going through, and yeah, pretty much it's just like whenever I had the chance, and at the time I definitely like coming up here and, you know, being able to chat, share my story and information, and then also try to learn as much as I can from you and your team, just because it's something I really enjoy, and you know, helps me keep my mind busy.
Did you ever reunite with your child?
I did. I got majority custody, and I also got placement, and it was a very, very long road. It took about almost 2 years to close that case.
Was your case in Meadowlark or Vista or El Cajon?
Meadowlark. It was Meadowlark. It started in El Cajon, but the thing is, one of the presiding judges down there actually used to be I don't know what they call it in the juvenile courts when they're defending the parents. Is that like the same as a public defender, or do they use another word for it?
Basically, yeah, court-appointed defense attorney.
Yeah. So I found out that judge that signed the warrant, right, was actually my parents' lawyer in the same courthouse, right, with the same division and the same jurisdiction back in the 80s. So I mentioned that, and then when he realized that, he transferred the case over to Meadowlark because there was no way he was going to be able to touch it.
How long has your case been closed?
Since May, I would like to say May 1st or 2nd of 22.
Okay. 22. Okay, that's not too long ago, I guess.
But they're still gonna harass you somehow. You know, so you have to keep your guards up. They're not gonna give up on you.
I know, most definitely. I'm always going to be on their watch list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not gonna leave you alone unless you leave the country.
You know, I want to tell you guys an interesting story. I may have talked about this case a long time ago, but it seems like a few years ago, I represented a guy in a Northern California county. And when I walked into the courtroom for the first time, people were laughing at me, basically because my client, they thought was, kind of a weird guy, somehow found this attorney from Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And we had a hearing. We had several hearings. I flew back and forth, and eventually, at the trial, something amazing happened. My client had not a court appointed, a CPS referred therapist. And it was a woman who had worked in the system up there for, I guess, years. She was an individual therapist. And my guy had been assigned to go to therapy with that person. And I called the therapist at my client's insistence. I called the therapist, and the therapist told me something incredible. She said to me, I have a recording of a social worker admitting that she lied to the court to keep the child away from my client, who was the father. I think mother was incarcerated at the time, so she wasn't getting the child. And I said, well, tell me how this happened, you know? She said, well, the social worker called me to get an update on my client's therapy and to report that update to the court. And she told told the social worker, Miss blah blah blah, we've been working together for many years, and I read some of the reports that you wrote about the father, and a lot of it, a lot of the stuff that you've been reporting isn't true. And she said to the social worker, why did you do that? At that moment, the phone's cut off. Okay. Um, and it wasn't the social worker hanging up. There was a technical issue and the conversation ended. Well, during that interim period, someone else calls the therapist and she's on the phone. The social worker calls back and gets voicemail. In the voicemail, she says something to the effect, and I can't quote it word for word, but something to the effect, well, the reason why I lied is because I don't think the father should have custody of this little baby. The therapist disclosed that to me and gave me a recording. I played that recording at the trial. The judge was flabbergasted. I got the impression, and he had been there a long time, I got the impression that he thought that social workers would never lie. Now, that he never told me that, that's just the impression I got. He was flabbergasted. Do you know that they continued to fight me and fight me? And finally, they made the judge make a decision. He begged them to settle the case with me, and they refused. He decided in returning the child to my client. Well, of course, afterwards, we sue the county, right? And that case is still pending. And it's amazing to hear all of the excuses the county's lawyer has in trying to justify that a social worker lied in writing under oath about a parent. And it wasn't like one little lie, it was a lot of big lies because she thought that she was doing God's work by keeping this child away from the father, and therefore her lying to the judge was justified. And it reminds me, do you guys remember on YouTube there is an argument in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals? And there's a young woman lawyer who's arguing that Orange County should have immunity, qualified immunity, if the social worker lies under oath. Remember that?
Yeah, I
And
remember hearing about it. That's like
that's on YouTube. That actually happened.
Yeah, no, I
And
remember you talking about it. And it's ridiculous that's even a thing. Like, why?
right, and the three judges that are on the panel for this case, they're like asking her, like, basically, they didn't say these words, but it's like, are you crazy? There can never be immunity if a worker lies in court under oath. I mean, what are you trying to pull? If a worker was given immunity to lie under oath in court, you could never sue a worker for anything. It's just, forget it. They're untouchable. But this very conservative panel of 3 judges voted, well, no, that if a worker lies, they can be sued. And that's the situation I have in my case in Northern California. Because a social worker is on a recording saying the reason why she lied to the judge is because she didn't think the child should be placed with my client. Now, I never thought that the things that she was saying was true, but I was wondering why she was saying it. And once in a while, I even asked my client, like, are you doing any of these things? Like, would the social worker tell these bald-faced lies? You must have done like 1 or 2 of those things. No, Mr. Davis, I never did any of that. You start to even doubt yourself. But the extent of what people will do to try to protect children, it's kind of mind-blowing. Forget the system, forget our system of justice, forget the oath of office, or the oath you take in court to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Mhm.
It doesn't always apply. And I've seen many occasions where people have told me, my clients, Mr. Davis, she's lying. I once told a story about a social worker testifying maybe 6-7 years ago that a child right before the detention said ABC. The case closed, the kids were placed with the grandparents in guardianship, but the parents were living there or living nearby. So they saw their kids every day. And years after the case was over, I talked to the kid. And she told me, she said, Mr. Davis, I never said that to the social worker. But I was too young because they said if I kept quiet and didn't say anything, that it would be faster for me to go back home to my parents. And I believed them. So I just went along with everything. I wonder how many times that happens. How many times that has happened to people. I'm in the middle of a trial right now in LA with another very well-known attorney. He represents the mother and I have the father. And we're in the middle of the trial and he's cross-examining one of the minors. And the minor is on the stand and he's an older child, teenager. And he's telling things like, well, that was a lie. That was a lie. Social worker told me not to say anything. It's astounding.
It's a strategy. I call it a demonic strategy. It is a demonic strategy they do this with everyone. And I hardly doubt anyone in CPS actually do anything legit. They don't follow their own guidelines, actually.
I agree with Miss G.
Mhm.
Mr. Davis, we started court watching in the state of New York, where we go in on even CPS cases, family court cases, which would be your juvenile court cases in California. And we've even gotten the New York Times in on a CPS case to court watch and report on it. And one of the cases that we court watched was a learning disabled couple. And CPS exploited their vulnerability to kidnap all 4 of their beautiful children. And one of the children got murdered in foster care. And we court watched that case. And I'm a physician assistant. And they were manufacturing false claims that the father was a safety concern because he wanted Neosporin on his child's finger because the child was still young and puts her fingers in her mouth. And I'm a physician assistant watching this. And I'm like, Neosporin, guys, is mostly Vaseline. And it's not a safety concern if you put Neosporin on a kid's hand and then they put their hand in their mouth. We even use the same antibiotics as eye drops. So I wrote up a little letter for the parents and I said, take this to your pharmacist and ask your pharmacist if she agrees with it. Will she sign it that Neosporin is not a safety concern as long as the child doesn't have allergies? And wouldn't you know that CPS later, many months later, went to that pharmacist and coerced her to sign an affidavit that this was a forgery when the pharmacist actually really did sign that letter. And they used that to try and make the parents look like these horrible people that did this forgery. Yep. So then I just called poison control, recorded it, transcribed it, and showed that, and I did a witness affidavit to the fact of that I was actually on the phone with them when they went to the pharmacist and witnessed that the pharmacist signed it. So, but they did that horrible thing, tried to make the parents look like these criminals that had a letter forged when they really didn't. And they accept that they do that. I mean, it's one thing if someone who's like a drug abusive parent or something. These were, good learning disabled parents. They were good people. They meant no harm to anyone, and they were just exploiting their vulnerability.
Hey, Bob, you see that comment?
Yeah, that's my friend. He's messing around. What's up, dude? I invited people here to your live.
Okay. Are you a lawyer?
No, but I definitely after the stuff I was able to pull off, it definitely motivated me to definitely want to go back and learn. Which, hopefully one day me and you could sit down and chat, and you could maybe give me some pointers on like studying methods and like where should I start to learn, because like there's so many different things that I could go in and do. But I was more looking at what people like you, Sean McMillan, Robert Powell do. To be honest, that's something I would definitely love to get into.
I got into this area of law by accident, by mistake. As a matter of fact, when somebody first told me about these courts, I didn't even believe it. I thought he was exaggerating. There were courts where they take kids away from parents, and I was a 3-year lawyer at that time, and I had never heard of CPS courts. I'd never heard of that. Before the internet and everything was online, they had all the laws for California in these volumes and volumes of books. And California at that time seemed like they had more laws than most states. So you'd go look at the wall and there'd be all these blue books. And then California CPS law is under something called the Welfare and Institutions Code, which is all the way at the end, in alphabetical order, of which I never went to the end. I was looking in the civil code, the code of civil procedure, the evidence code, those things right in there, right? Every once in a while, I'd see the fish and game laws and, things like that. Welfare and Institutions Code, what the hell is that? And I think at that time, there were like 3 books, 3 volumes of laws. And I always wondered, I wonder what that's all about. But I just never knew. And then a friend of mine, we were working at a law firm, and he told me he was going to defend parents in cases where they take kids away from the parents. And I thought, Mike, you're crazy. That's unconstitutional. What the hell are you talking about? He was right. He was right. Hey, Bob, maybe you can talk Miss G into going to law school. She and I talked about that, and I thought I had her convinced at one time to go back to law school.
Well, my best sales pitch is, if you know you're good at something, just go do it. Discipline yourself even if you don't want to, right? Especially if your why is strong enough, right? Nothing should be able to stop you. I mean, full disclosure, right? I had to drop out of high school at 12th grade for financial reasons. My family was doing bad financially at that time. So for the fact if someone like me could, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to downgrade, people who went to law school and worked really hard to get where they're at. It's more or less like if an average Joe like me could figure it out, anybody could do it. As long as you put your nose to the grindstone and you just like read, focus on what's going on around you. At least that's what, has helped me.
I'll keep that in consideration, John.
Social workers beware, Miss G.
I know that. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know if I would be a good attorney or a bad attorney, because I'm very passionate, and parents and kids and animals are the most important thing to me in life, and family, of course, and special friends. But I'm afraid, I guess I'm concerned more of being a liability than, because sometimes my mouth takes over, and you know, I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
I
that's
think you would do great, Miss G, and you have really strong common sense. You have very, very strong common sense, and I find myself always on the show saying, "Yep, I agree with Miss G. Yep, I agree with Miss G."
Yeah, but common sense doesn't work in court. There is no common sense in court. So I would have to learn how to think like an attorney and be like an attorney. And I don't want to be a jerk of an attorney, meaning I don't want to be like them. I don't want to, I want, I guess, I don't know how to explain it to you guys.
I know it's so easy to fall into some sort of like either corruption or just a spiral of emotions. Just because
Mhm.
even when doing something as simple as helping my friend with his paperwork, it's just all the emotions. Like, because you got to sit there and literally relive everything to the letter, and it's a lot. I mean, I don't know how people like you and Vince and David do it on a daily basis.
It's not easy. I go to court with him. I go to hearings with him. I see how he, um, like when I go to hearings, he'll say, this is my legal assistant, so I can be able to go in, get it? But not just anybody, nobody can just go in there. And that's the problem. And we should be able, everyone should be able to go in and watch what the judges are doing. I would love to be an attorney, like I said, like again, but I'm afraid because other attorneys that I know who are friends of mine, um, one of them got disbarred, because she talked back at the judge. That was a while ago. So I don't know how to, do you understand? You guys know what I'm talking about? It's kind
Yeah,
of,
no, definitely. It's like, you know, you're expected to go in there and you're held to such a high standard to where one wrong move and you're sanctioned and your whole career is just gone.
yeah. But see, I think G Sense knows what I'm talking about. She understands what I'm saying because I can't be myself in front of a judge. I can't say, Your Honor, you're wrong, and here are evidence, here's proof, here's this, here's that, it was filed in court, you have record of it, all that. The judge is not going to even let me get to that far, to that point. They're either going to shut me down. Davis said he would teach me his strategy. I already know some of his strategy, but not all of it. But he said he would teach me his strategy. But I'm not a cool cat like him. See, he's a cool cat. In court, he's cool. He's good under pressure. With me, it's kind of like I'm good under pressure too. But when I see a judge in front of me who's biased or not a good judge or a social worker who's literally lying, I'm not going to be a cool cat. I'm going to be very aggressive, and that's where I would be going with this. Yeah, that's just, I don't want to be, if I'm like Davis in court, I wouldn't mind being an attorney. But how do I get to the point where Davis is? I have no idea. He had to learn to be cool. You guys get me? I mean, I'm trying to explain it the best way I can, but I also have to be honest with myself and honest with you guys. I would be a very aggressive attorney. Very aggressive. I will not be the kind of attorney who's like, yes, Your Honor. Okay, Your Honor. Sure, Your Honor. Yeah, you're a scumbag, Your Honor. Oh, you're stupid, Your Honor. It's like they want you to kiss their behind. And I'm just not that kind of attorney. I mean, you know what I mean. Unless I go to boot camp, you know, cool cat boot camp, maybe that would teach me how to, talk to evil people and look at them in the eye and address my point in a way where it would be helpful. But again, I would be, what do you think, Stacey? I would be aggressive. I really would. What do you think?
Well, I have a few thoughts about it because I know how you can get really passionate, but
Hmm.
how many attorneys are there that are out there that are not passionate and they work for the other side instead of their client? So you're already above probably 90% of the attorneys that are out there. Mr. Davis is not one of the 90% that works for the other side that I'm speaking of, but so many do. They work for the other side because CPS is such a large entity with endless pockets. So for a lot of people, it's career suicide to go against the beast.
I would be actually a good civil attorney, especially when I'm doing a depot. When I'm doing a depot, I will make you bleed when I'm doing a depot.
Well, Mr.
Meaning,
Davis can go to court and you can do the depositions. Sounds like a great team to me.
yeah, I would love to do depots because that's when you get the criminals, under oath. And then when you go to court, then you cross-examine them on their cross-examination, and a liar will always be a liar. It's kind of like that. So to me, that would make a lot of sense. But he didn't hear anything I said, of course, because you know.
I mean, I think you would be a great attorney, but it's just like I'm pretty sure like Vincent Davis would agree. It's just like you have to be able to, it's really hard, but you got to be able to control the way you react to your emotions because if not,
Mhm.
that'll just take everything.
Exactly. But see, like I said, he's a cool cat. If I can go to cool cat boot camp, that'd be great. To handle himself the way he handles himself in court, I love. Um, like I said, he's a cool cat. He's cool. Under pressure, he's cool. But then I would have to learn.
Miss G, I will tell you something. I would probably put my temperament between you and Mr. Davis. My temperament is not as good as Mr. Davis's, but I will tell you, as a physician assistant and dealing with people, when people are not well, they're grumpy. And a lot of times when they're not well, they think it's your fault and they come across it a certain way. And after you deal with that so much, you already start in your mind to think about, well, if I respond this way, this is just going to escalate the situation that much more, and then I'm going to lose. So you just get conditioned because then you start to learn from experience. Well, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. If I do this, this is what's going to happen. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to respond in this way. So a lot of times when patients now, if I come across like a hostile patient or an aggressive patient, I just keep my voice very monotone. And when they, if they see they're not getting a rise out of me and I continue with my monotone, they come around. So even though you think you're this certain way, people will condition you because you'll start to learn that if you respond in a certain way, it's only going to actually hurt you. So people will condition you. That I don't know if that's such a concern or not, because really the goal is to achieve justice, and most of the time these parents are being wronged.
There is no justice, though. See, that's the thing. When I try to explain that to people, they don't understand it. They say, well, Miss G, you said you can help me. Yes, of course I can help you. Well, I want justice. I know, but I send them Davis's little clip video about what is justice, and I send them that, and they're like, well, I don't understand what Mr. Davis is trying to say. Well, you can't go to court with a mindset that you are going to get justice because there is no justice.
Yeah,
There's
but Mr. Davis wins sometimes.
No, he doesn't get justice the way we want to get justice. It's like we must understand the importance of our rights, yes. But the government doesn't care about justice. They care about function. That's
Have
what
you
people
ever heard of
understand.
the
All they
saying?
care about is function. Function is different than justice. That's what the court cares about. And we can't have that mindset going into court. And that's, oftentimes we harm our cases by ourselves because we can't understand that. We can't get that. And when I explain to people, and I want everyone to know this, and some of you already know that about me, but I am so passionate about you getting your kids back. It's not, ask Stacy how passionate I am. I'm so passionate that sometimes I cry with people. Actually, often I cry with people when they're crying because I feel your pain. I know how it feels like not to be with our children. I know how it feels like to be treated unfairly. But all my mindset back then was I want justice, to the point where Davis had to draw a circle, um, to explain to me about justice and, winning and all that, and I still didn't understand. Like, what the hell are you talking about? It was more robotic to me as a parent. So I totally get you guys. But when I give you guys advice as from my experience, my own experience, listen to it, because I've been there, done that. I know what, justice. I know how passionate people want, when they talk about justice. They want that result. They want it. But me, I would rather you get your kids back first thing. Justice comes after you get your kids back, and then you can go after them for a lawsuit. That's what you guys don't understand. That's when justice is justified. Lawsuit. But first, focus on the big prize. The big prize is always going to be your children. It's never going to be anything else. I couldn't care less about a social worker. I don't care if they get hit by a bus tomorrow. Okay. But all I'm telling you, all I care about is for you guys to have your children home with you. And oftentimes I hear you guys say to me, well, Miss G, I got a child advocate who knows a lot about cases and they're helping me. And then you lose the case and you come to Miss G and say, well, Miss G, I'm sorry, but now I understand what you're saying. But why wouldn't you understand that from the beginning? Because it's your children you're gambling with. You can't gamble with the wrong people. Anyone can make a big story seem like it's legit, but it's not. It's not. I don't care how many times they tell you, oh, yeah, I won cases for people. I don't believe that. I don't. Because it takes a lot of work. And I see Davis, when I'm taking him to court, I see him. He's sitting there literally going over the case over and over again throughout the ride to come up with strategies, to know what he's going to say during the trial, cross-examination. And all this is important for you guys to understand. Someone like me who hasn't been to law school yet, and someone like Bob and Stacy and the rest of you guys, you don't know what you're doing. You don't, because there's specific
facts. I'm surprised
and,
I was even
yeah,
able to do what I did.
you don't. And also, there's court talk. You can't go to court and talk like me. You can't address the judge the way I'm addressing it. You'll be murdered. So you have to learn how to speak court talk. And there's absolutely no way in God's earth that you will know how to do that unless you go to law school. Law school is intense. Davis said he would train me and, prepare me, and I believe that. But I guess he sets high standards, and I don't think I can even come close to him. I want to, I would love to be a great attorney and win cases the way he does. But I'm just a little, I don't know. What do you call it, Davis? You call me caterpillar or something about, I don't know. I'm still trying to come out of the shell. There you go. I'm nothing compared to him. Am I going to learn his strategy? I don't know.
It'd just be really epic to see Vincent Davis, Sean McMillan, and Robert Puala sit down on a podcast and just, pick each other's brain and go at this. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, fear is false expectation appearing real. That is so true. Wait, who are you directing that to?
You.
What? Me? I'm not afraid.
Of law school.
I'm not afraid. That's wrong. What you just said. That was mean. First of all, I am not afraid. I just feel like I would be a liability because I am very passionate.
Anyway, so what else has been going on, you guys?
Well, I have a whole different case with the woman I'm with.
Why are you on the show today? You could have just, not show up today. It could have been just me and Stacy and Bob.
Oh, was that the plan? The Three Musketeers?
Yeah, the Three Musketeers. Yeah, I love Bob. He knows I love him.
There were actually 4 Musketeers, right? In the three Musketeers, there were actually 4.
Where? Where did you get that?
The
There
movie.
is no Four Musketeers. It's the Three Musketeers.
There
Yeah,
is
but
now. It's 2023.
You
they were
stop that,
actually four.
Bob. 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 You know damn well is there's only Three Musketeers. Unless Davis made a new one, made his own Musketeers team. Four Musketeers. Davis, who's the fourth one?
Hold on, I'm looking it up.
Oh Lord, here we go. Google.
Okay, here it goes. Did the Three Musketeers actually have four members?
Did it?
Yes.
There's
D'Artagnan, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis.
Aramis.
Four.
Oh, Grace even wrote it. There is four. Grace, I love you. I just adore that girl so much. Grace is our producer, people. She's the best. Yeah, there is four, I guess. I believe Grace. I don't believe you, Vincent. But
And that's your problem. You don't believe me.
what can I say? No
So
comment.
have the three of you been carrying on the torch and doing the show every evening?
Yeah, not when I was doing my root canal surgery.
Mr. Davis, Miss G went on, and she went on with her. She was in her root canal. It was so sad. Like at first, I kind of laughed because I was like, Miss G, you got to tell people you had a root canal because they're going to think you were under the influence. And she's so dedicated to doing your shows. She went on because she had a message for people, and you could tell it just came straight from her heart because she was so sick to be on the show, and she still cared to do it.
With a fever.
Yeah, I was worried about her life, honestly. And again, I'm a PA, so it's not like I'm embellishing. I was worried about her life for a minute there, and I was like, do I text Mr. Davis to tell him to check on her?
Yeah, he won't care. He doesn't care if I die tomorrow. But I did it with I did it with a swollen mouth, and I was drooling, right? I was drooling. It was I did this show, and Stacy was cracking up, and I did this show for like 30 minutes. I think it was something like that.
Maybe you were under the influence, Miss G. Got to send you to a drug test. Hey, speaking of drug tests and fighting drug tests, has everyone heard of attorney Cory Okorocha?
I actually was commenting a lot one time when one of the shows you did with him.
He is going to be one of the presenters on our seminar this Saturday.
Nice.
So he's giving us an hour-long presentation and Q&A on how to fight drug testing in CPS courts.
Nice. I'll have some good questions for him then.
Just to give you an idea, he's a highly skilled trial attorney who turned into a forensic scientist, specializing in drug testing and alcohol testing.
Mm-hmm.
And now, from what I understand, primarily his time is spent traveling around the country, testifying as an expert for people in different types of cases regarding drug and alcohol testing. And if you find him on Facebook, you should follow him because he tells a lot of funny stories about testifying, against the government in DUI trials and drug trials and stuff.
His expertise is far beyond mine, but I used to be interim medical director for an occupational medicine region, and so drug testing was something we did quite often. And just throughout my career, because I've been a PA for 25 years, I see a lot of times that the tests are inaccurate, and I'm not even testing for CPS sometimes. I mean, I've literally had people, unfortunately, who were suicidal, and they were like, I took a whole bottle of Lortab, and they said my tox screen was negative. So it goes both ways, too. They're just not super accurate, reliable tests. And then you hear stories of social workers performing these tests in people's homes, which is really shocking because they're not medical people. And I'm sure if the tests aren't reliable, sometimes even when medical people administer them, I'm sure these social workers who, as we discussed earlier, lie half the time too, are not getting these things done right. And you see you see stories where they even intentionally falsify the results.
I was in a county up north in California with my client, and at some point, the county council says something, kind of outrageous about my client. If she tested now, she would test dirty. And the judge orders her to go take a drug test in the room right next to the courtroom. And I said to the judge, I said, that's not a testing facility. That's someone's office, because the door had a window on it, and I had looked in there many times. There was just a desk and a copy machine. Well, apparently this person, one of the responsibilities they had in this court was to drug test people. And I told the judge, I said, wait a minute. This is not drug testing. This is not admissible under California law under the Kelly-Frye test. That's ridiculous. So she goes, he still orders her to do it. And she comes back and it's a positive test. Positive test. And then I made so much noise about it, the judge says, okay, well, let's send her to the drug testing facility right now. And it's kind of a small county right now, and have her test as soon as she leaves the courtroom. So we leave the courtroom, we drive for about 2 miles. She goes in the testing facility, takes the test, and it comes back negative.
Right.
Now she just tested in the courtroom positive.
Right. The
so wait a minute, but that's not the end of the story. When we eventually come back to court, do you know that the county council and the minors council still tried to use that bogus test?
I believe that. Yeah, I see.
And I said, Judge, are you admitting that test into evidence? Because if you are, I'll address these, wild statements being made by the attorneys. And if you're not, I'm not even going to address it. He says, well, under the circumstances, I'm not going to be letting that in. And, we'll accept the test that you did the same day, literally an hour later at the real testing facility. But can you imagine how many people over the years have gone through that and had to go take a test?
It's bad. It's bad. Right. So when we're in practice, and like say for occupational screening or what have you, that we do the drug testing, like the saliva ones or the in-office urine ones, those are always just like screening, because if they're positive or they're negative, we still have to send it off for a confirmation. So that just shows how unreliable they are, that we always have to send it off for a confirmation test. So those ones that they're doing on the spot like that, they're not reliable.
Right.
And again, you're having a social worker or someone that's not even medical do it.
One of the first times Corey Okorocha gave a presentation on our first Saturday seminars, he talked about what is needed for an accurate drug test. Okay. Now, I've been a lawyer, 30 some years, and I didn't know that. And I called up another attorney, a very well-known, defense attorney. And I said, hey, did you know blah, blah, blah? He goes, no, I never knew that. Are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm positive. He says, well, what authority do you have of that? So Corey in the seminar quoted some, scientific studies and surveys and books and stuff like that. And, about a week later, the attorney calls me up and he goes, I looked that stuff up. And I talked to an expert. And he says, you know what? You're right. He says, what they're doing in CPS courts is, he didn't say illegal, but he said it's not admissible. And I haven't been objecting to it because I didn't know.
I'll tell you this too. When I've also worked in, I never actually once ever prescribed this myself, but I took the education for it, and I've worked in the facilities that do it. But I was actually at one point credentialed to prescribe Suboxone and medical marijuana. And in those facilities, when we're collecting urine to see, because we do random tests if we're prescribing something, we're making sure people are taking it instead of selling it. So if they come in and they want a refill, we're making sure it's in their urine, because if it's not, then there's a problem if we've been prescribing it to them. So I'm telling you, those ones that are in our office that we're doing that preliminary screening, if we're going to refill their medication, we're looking at the urine. We're like, is it positive? Is it negative? Is it positive? I can't really quite tell. Like, that's how bad it is.
Here's something that I learned from Okori. Did you know that when you test for methamphetamine, illegal methamphetamine, that the lab has to, as a final step, run the sample through a very special machine that apparently is like very, very expensive. And most labs don't have this machine because it's so expensive. He said methamphetamine can test positive for two reasons. Number one, it's illegal methamphetamine. Or number two, it's something close to methamphetamine, but it's not illegal methamphetamine. And you can test positive for that. And unless they put it through that final step, that final machine, you're going to get a positive test for methamphetamine. And if you're in a CPS court, you're going to lose your kids.
Right. And they'll take them right on those, like I said, these tests.
And here's the thing that's really scary. You don't know whether that facility has the machine for the final step unless you go to the facility and you have an expert with you like a Corey who can say, well, where's your XYZ machine? Oh, we don't have it. Well, if you don't have it, scientifically, your test is inadmissible.
Yeah, but Mr. Davis, not even the machine. They're taking kids away based on the social worker showing up the house, telling the person they have to take the test, and if they don't, they're going to lose their kid. So they're taking kids away based on these cockamamie tests that we as medical professionals see as very unreliable, such that we're always sending a confirmation test out. But they're taking the kids before any confirmation test.
There's a county down here that's really big on something called the drug patch as one of the testing things. You wear this patch and then, it comes back, it's positive or negative. When I told Corey that, you know what, he started laughing and he thought I was making a joke. And he told me that those tests are one of the most unreliable tests out there. And the reason why it's unreliable, because any time that you have something exposed to the environment, it can be polluted, 1,000 ways.
And think about that. These people that are non-medical, that are bringing these tests into people's home, are driving them in their hot California car, exposed to extreme heat. They're not taking them out of their car and being diligent with them when they get home from work and taking it in the house and keeping it in a refrigerator, whatever temperature it's supposed to be in. They're leaving it in their hot car, coming into somebody's house. They don't even know what they're doing with the test. They don't even know how reliable or unreliable it is, because they're not even medical people. And then they're taking away people's kids.
Right. So I'm just, a little concerned about what we're doing as a society to all of these parents.
Yeah, man, we definitely need more people like Vincent Davis, Robert Weil, and Sean McMillan. Like, if we had a lot more people doing what they did as far as holding CPS accountable, right, things would change a lot quicker. But only because there's like a handful of people that know what they're doing, right, it's going to be really slow for the gears to be moving.
Hey, folks, we're coming to the end of the show. Actually, we're past time for the show. I want to thank my co-hosts, Miss G, Miss Stacy, and Mr. Bob for being co-hosting tonight. The show will be back, hopefully, with me tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And, one of the things that I was doing before I took a hiatus was the call-in. You call in and I put you on the speaker and, you ask your question. I'm going to try to set that up for tomorrow. Grace, remind me tomorrow. Call me tomorrow and let's set that up around noon. Make sure I have everything.
So you're going to be on tomorrow?
Unless you don't want me on.
All right, guys, I got to go.
All right, it was nice seeing you again.
Right.
Good seeing you, Bob. Bye, guys.
Good seeing you. So, Mr. Vincent Davis, I have a favor.
Where's the music? Where's the outro music? No outro music.
No, we're going to choose another one.
Darn.
All right. Good night.
Good night.